The Soul Chaperone, written by Jason M. Burns. Narrated by Jason M. Burns. Season 1, A Tough Nut to Crack. Episode 5, Lightning Rod. I hike through the forest in search of the recently departed. The lush overhang of trees makes it difficult to pinpoint the source of the beam. It doesn't help my concentration any that I'm in a heightened state of skin-crawling jitters. It turns out Alma was right about the deer ticks. They're out for blood. My blood. I bend down to flick one of the bastards off of my shin when I catch my first glimpse of police tape wrapped haphazardly around a tree. That's when I hear the faint yet unmistakable sound of a grown man crying. I stumble toward the sobbing. I'm not sure if it's my clumsy rustling that first signals my arrival, or just that my arrival is now expected under this particular set of circumstances. But Rod the Ranger spots me before I spot him.
Jesus H. Christ!
I hear his booming voice call out through the various oaks and maples, his tone so sharp that it could chop the trees down.
You are one morbid son of a bitch! What's this, the third time you've now dragged your sorry ass down to try and eye-frig a corpse?
Stacked on top of a set of shoulders that you could land a helicopter on, Rod Zuniga's tiny pinprick of a head is laced with bulging veins that look one exertion away from showering the foliage with his inner Merlot. His gym-charged body marches towards me, the military-style boots hugging his Fred Flintstone feet, crushing the sorry saplings in his path. I secretly wish that the police tape will protect me from his testosterone-fueled rage.
I want your weird ass off my accident scene,
Rod the Ranger warns, reaching across the tape barrier to press the tip of his naturally cased linguiça of a finger into my chest. Although I've been terrified of this human hard-on since I was 9 years old, a period of my life when I suffered daily from his atomic wedgies and wet willies, I get more of a thrill these days crawling under his skin than I do running in the other direction. Doesn't your accident scene start on that side of the tape? The tendons in his neck tighten like rope put under immense strain as he reaches out and rips the police tape from the trees.
This entire flippin' forest is my jurisdiction, jagoff!
The premature put-down may have worked for Rod on the schoolyard growing up, but now, in his new life as the law, it draws worrisome stares from his fellow rangers. This is no way for a dedicated public servant to act on the job, and he knows it. Embarrassed, he jabs his finger further into my personal space and causes my sternum to retreat into my chest.
Get out of my sight,
he whispers, a storm of spittle soaking my face. Rod the Ranger turns on his heels and heads back into the epicenter of the accident scene, the strewn police tape wrapped around his ankle like a piece of toilet paper pulled from a public bathroom. He drags it for a few dozen steps before our fellow ranger points it out. What a Rod, I say to myself, just loud enough for my boyhood bully to hear. He turns and scowls, trying to kick the police tape free. It's in that moment of sweet just desserts that a confused soul stumbles out from behind a tree and passes through Rod the Ranger. Naturally, Rod does not see this occur, but the experience causes him to shiver involuntarily. He nearly tumbles over trying to remove the police tape from his boot. Dressed in head-to-toe camouflage, the man recently known as Stanley Berg rubs at the back of his head, trying to pull something out that isn't actually there. Given his face-down corpse lying only a few feet away, my guess is that he's trying to remove the brain-deep hunting arrow sticking out of what was once his skull. He continues to grasp at nothing as I casually attempt to gain his attention, doing my best to wave him over without signaling my presence to the Rangers any more than I already have. He seems surprised that I can see him, and not just because of his heavy-handed camouflaging. He points at himself, as if to say, "Me?" And I respond with a subtle thumbs up that feels just Fonzie enough to carry the desired tidings. As Stanley shambles towards me, I locate the cause of all that crying, a middle-aged mountain of a man with a beard of graying hair stretching down towards his barrel-chested body. By comparison, he makes Rod the Ranger look like the runt of society's litter, and my first thought, as weird as it is, becomes, could I fit both of my feet into one of this man's socks? I know, I have more issues than National Geographic. Sensing a landmine that cannot easily be vaulted, I take 3 steps to my right and press my back against a twisting conglomeration of white birch trees, signaling for Stanley to follow. He does as suggested, still pawing at the projectile he knows should be causing major interference with his motor functions and speech. Am I dead? He asks, finding me picking ticks off my legs. Afraid so, Stanley, I say. The hunting became the hunted on this day. Stanley turns away from me, his confusion becoming less profound. He eyeballs the crying giant, who is now giving an official statement while huddled under a warming blanket. The events that played out before my arrival materialize in Stanley's phantom mind. "My brother-in-law," he says. "He shot me with one of his broadhead points." I snap my fingers, trying to recapture Stanley's attention, but his focus is drifting further and further away from me. "Those deets don't matter on your side of things anymore, Stan the man. So why don't we—" "I took my hat off for only a second," he continues, pointing to a neon orange fur-lined hunting cap trapped within the stifling limbs of a deciduous shrub. "I had an itch, and then—" I blow my cover, leaping out from behind the relative safety of my white birch barricade. I circle around to the other side of Stanley and block his line of sight. "Accidents happen. Trust me, I have seen more than my fair share these last 7 months." Stanley's face turns violent. "This was no accident," he screams. If anyone but me could hear him, every ear in a 100-mile radius would be at attention. "I found out he was cheating on my sister. I confronted him. We fought. He stormed off. Next thing I know, I'm staring at a park ranger who has obvious signs of early plaque buildup in his arteries. And how could I possibly know that? Because I walked through him." I hold my hands up, hoping it will tranquilize Stanley. I understand this is all very confusing, but if you can just take a deep breath. "Deep breath?" he echoes. He sniffs at the air in vain. "I can't take any breath." "Good point," I say. "Still, I really need you to stay calm." My request pushes Stanley over the edge. His anger goes full-blown nuclear. "Stay calm?" he shrieks. "Stay calm? That son of a bitch murdered me." A hawk whistles somewhere high above us. It's not strictly a predatory sound. It's a 2-note surprise. I've yet to work a murder in my brief time as a soul chaperone, and with everything else currently on my plate, I'm not eager to check it off of my list today. The worst possible thing in my line of work is drama. Everyone has some, but if the baggage is there when someone breathes their last breath, it makes my job nearly impossible to see through to the end. No one wants to leave unfinished business behind, and revenge is one of the biggest motivations for people to turn their backs on their door. I only have one shot to reel today's catch in. That sucks, Stanley, but that is why these conservation cops in the flat-brimmed hats are here. They will figure it out and bring your brother-in-law to justice. But your job, your only job, is to rest in peace from here on out. I wave my hands, mostly for effect, and a pair of oversized barn doors materialize in the middle of the forest. I've been doing this long enough not to be impressed by my own sorcery, but these are the biggest doors I have ever pulled out of thin air, and I stare in awe at them. Sometimes you just have to marvel at what you're capable of. A few feet away, Stanley's corpse twitches. The medical examiner will write it off as residual nerve activity caused by the release of stored chemicals, but I know what it actually is. It's the last gasp of corporeality leaving Stanley's body, triggered by his soul's acceptance of its own mortality. "These are from my daddy's barn," Stanley stammers, suddenly no longer interested in the guy who put an arrow in his head. He runs his hand over the weather-worn wood, the splinters penetrating his nostalgic mind. He used to fix his motorcycles in here. He loved rebuilding them from the ground up. We drive all over the state looking for spare parts. Sometimes he'd even let me help with the rebuilds. While Stanley takes a one-way trip down memory lane, I feel my pores expand, each and every one of them serving as a sweat-inducing alarm system that reacts to the changing air. The normies, like Rod the Ranger, probably don't feel it, but my senses are heightened. They have been ever since I started this extremely alternative lifestyle, and my body sends signals to my mind that things are very much not as they should be. Just as it did with Charlie a day before, the temperature around me drops dramatically. I shiver, though I'm not entirely sure if it's due to the cold or because deep down I know what is about to happen. "Okay," Stanley says in surrender. "I'll go. Don't have much worth staying for anyway." He leans forward and slides the barn doors open. Instead of being greeted by a divine glow lit with the purpose of washing over Stanley's spiritual arrival, there is nothing but darkness waiting for him on the other side. Keeping a safe distance, I hesitantly peer into the nothingness, not wanting to see those piss-colored eyes a second time. Once again I feel choked, finding it impossible to swallow. I hack, trying to cough up whatever is lodged in my airway, but nothing comes up. So, do I just walk through? Stanley asks, and while I owe him an answer, I'm unable to give him one. Someone, or something, responds for me. Maya. The peculiar tongue replies from inside the darkness. The voice is like a hurricane delivering the message into our world from whatever place lies beyond. Even though I can't be certain, Rod the Ranger appears to hear it as well. He looks out over the horizon, inspecting his current understanding of reality. Silvery smoke starts to pour out from the open barn doors, and I reach out to pull Stanley away, forgetting that my physical touch has no governance over his ghostly form. My hand falls through the soul in my care, and before I can will the doors away, the silver streaks become tendrils. The tendrils wrap around every deep-rooted tree within reach, leashing the barn doors to this place. I am powerless. This is normal, right? Stanley asks, even though somewhere in his spiritual self he knows the train has already left the station. I'm sorry, is all I can offer as a second wave of tendrils emerge, snaking towards Stanley. These coils of the damned swaddle him, squeezing tighter and tighter until his immaterial matter starts to dribble from his ears like the juice of a squeezed lemon. I make one last attempt to power the doors out of existence, but whatever this spagoi is, it's far more impressive than I am. To show me just how much more, it drives one of its tendrils out of the darkness and into my forehead, lodging itself into my brain. I can feel it fishing through each section, the cerebellum, the hippocampus, like a law clerk searching through old boxes of file folders. When it locates something of interest inside me, the tendril goes taut, and all I can see is a blinding flash of white and yellow light, as if the sun has suddenly become an over-easy egg. And then there is nothing. No sight. No sound, no sensation. I don't know how much time passes, or if any does at all, but in the emptiness, I become full. Just imagine this room over here being a recreation area where travelers can come together after a long day on the slopes and play board games and sip hot cocoa. Her voice is like the world's most comfortable pillow, and all I want to do is let my head fall into it. It's not lame. People love to do that kind of stuff on idealistic mountain getaways. I could sleep here forever, pressed against her tenderness and tolerance. We could even lay out the next morning's breakfast menu in here so that everyone is motivated to pop in. Trust me, that will do the trick. Her purity is the quilt that keeps me warm. It is the only blanket that I will ever need. Anna and I versus the world. Again, there is only the egg. So blazing in its brilliance that I know it would burn my eyes down to the sockets if I were to look upon it outside of whatever this is. It begins to dim, growing fainter and fainter, until the next thing I see is, "What in the holy ham sandwich are you on, Jagoff?" Rod the Ranger asks in a hushed tone as he kneels over me. Confused, I turn to my left and feel the crumpling of dead and dying leaves beneath my face. I am on the ground. "You just started screaming like a banshee and then hit the dirt hard," he continues. "I thought I was going to have 2 accident scenes to process in one today." I sit up, trying to collect my thoughts. Rod the Ranger is there, looking surprisingly concerned, but Stanley and the spagoi are nowhere to be seen. "Seriously, do you need me to call somebody?" he asks. My head spins. It feels like a ping pong ball trapped in one of those lotto number tumblers, turning over and over on itself. I'm having a hard time seeing and thinking clearly. Everything feels like a movie you fell asleep during, only to wake up at the very end and realize that you missed out on some very important plot points. Did Rod the Ranger just offer me assistance? I try to stand, but Rod the Ranger stops me. He presses his hands down on my shoulders, keeping me from climbing out of the leaves. I'm going to have so many ticks on my back. "Easy," he tells me, muscling me to the ground. "Take your time. You definitely hit your noggin when you dropped." I try to wriggle myself free, but Rod the Ranger is too strong. "I'm fine," I say, knowing full well that I'm not. "Listen," he offers in the most kind voice I have ever heard come out of his big dumb mouth. It can't be easy with what happened to your wife." My jaw falls to my chest. "What did you say?" Rod the Ranger continues, looking away from me as he shows off a softer side, one that I never knew he was capable of. "After the accident, I guess it makes sense that you keep coming out to these kinds of things, but it ain't healthy, man. I lost my mom recently, so I get it. I do, but you need to find some help for whatever you're struggling with." As much as I appreciate Rod the Ranger's completely out-of-character concern, my attention switches from my childhood tormentor to something just barely visible about 80 yards behind him. My eyes focus in and out, trying to fix on the object, but even blurry I would recognize that muzzle anywhere. It's the AWOL German Shepherd. Rod turns his head to look at me.
If you need anything, even just as...
Finally able to break free of his man strength, I spring to my feet, interrupting his "if you ever need a buddy" speech midway through. Thanks for the offer, I tell him, hurdling Stanley's corpse as I make a beeline for the dog's location, though I think you traumatized me enough for one lifetime. Oh, and I'm sorry for dashing through your crime scene.
It's an accident scene,
he yells out angrily.
Jag off!
Sure it is, I holler back. Oh, and before I forget, go and get your cholesterol checked. The German Shepherd turns and runs off in the other direction, heading deeper into the Crawford Notch State Forest. I follow. And of course, today I didn't wear my good running shoes. Fuck my life. Thank you for listening. For more information, visit thesoulchaperone.com.